Hi, I'm Eric Siegel with ericstrains.com. Today we're going to take a look at the new O-Scale BNSF Ice Cold Express set from Lionel. The Ice Cold Express was offered in Lionel's 2010 Volume 1 catalog, and then it was finally delivered in late December of 2011. The set consists of 5 pieces. At the front, you've got a BNSF AC6000 diesel. In between, you've got 3 BNSF mechanical refrigeration cars, and each refrigerator car has its own particular features. I'll show you those later in this video. And then at the end, you've got a BNSF Extended Vision caboose. As far as I know, this is a fictional set. I haven't found any evidence that BNSF has ever had an Ice Cold Express themed train, especially one with an AC6000 and an Extended Vision caboose decorated like the ones in this set. However, the name Ice Cold Express appears to be real. I have found pictures of BNSF refrigeration cars that had the Ice Cold Express name on them, although those refrigeration cars looked quite different from the ones in this set. So the name Ice Cold Express seems to be loosely based on reality, but the set itself is a fictional what-if kind of set. Now, if you're the kind of person who gets turned off by train sets that don't exist in the real world, then this set may not be for you, and that's okay. Overall, I think this is a really nice set with a lot of potential. However, it's not perfect. I have had several problems with it, some minor, some not so minor. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at each piece of the set, and along the way, I'll point out all the pros and cons that I have found, and then ultimately, you can make your own decision about this set. Let's start things off by taking a quick look at the AC6000 that comes with this set. This is a pretty typical Lionel Legacy diesel. It looks great, it runs great, and it sounds great, and it's a very solid performer. Lionel has made a whole bunch of different AC6000s over the last several years, and it's sort of become one of the workhorses of the Lionel diesel fleet. It's a very good engine. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about this engine, because just a few weeks ago, I did a full review of the Lionel Santa Fe AC6000, and since this engine is exactly the same as that Santa Fe AC6000, other than the paint scheme obviously, there's really no point in me going through all that again, so I'll give you some general information about this engine, but if you want a full review, check out that video I made a few weeks ago. You can get to it by clicking on the link that's popping up on the screen right now. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the basic stats and features of this engine. Under the hood, you've got the Legacy command system, so to get the most out of this engine, you want to run it with the Lionel Legacy remote, and of course you want to make sure that that remote is loaded with the most recent version of the Legacy software. At this time, the most recent version is 1.3. But if you don't have Legacy, you can also run this engine with Classic TMCC, or you can even run it conventionally if you so desire. The engine also features Lionel's RailSounds 5 sound system, and it's driven by 2 flywheel motors. It weighs in at 7 pounds 4 ounces. It's about 18.5 inches long, 20 inches if you count the couplers. It's got about 1 pound 12 ounces of pulling power, and the minimum recommended curve for this engine is 0.42. I also want to talk about the paint scheme on this engine because it's very unique. Lionel did a great job with the paint. I couldn't find any flaws. On the front of the engine, you've got the cool Santa Fe style logo. On the sides of the engine, the BNSF logo has this cool frost effect that complements the Ice Cold Express theme of the entire set. The road number on the engine is 32, as in 32 degrees, and in fact, on the sides of the cab, it does say 32 degrees, and the 32 degrees also has the same frost effect on it that the BNSF logo has. And then next to the 32 degrees on the cab, you've got a little sign that says The Iceman. So it just looks really neat. Again, it's a fictional theme as far as I know. It's not based on anything realistic, but I don't mind. I like it. It looks really nice. And again, if you're the kind of person that doesn't like fictional paint schemes, that's okay. Just don't buy the set. I did have one minor problem with this engine when I first ran it. What was happening is when the engine was in motion, it was making this awful scraping noise. And, you know, I'm the type of person who doesn't mind taking an engine apart to try to fix a minor problem, because after you've been in this hobby for a while, you know that troubleshooting just goes with the hobby, and sometimes it's a lot easier to just try to fix a minor problem yourself instead of sending it back to the manufacturer and being without your engine for a couple weeks while they fix it. And that was the case with this engine. When I took the shell off, I found that the flywheel on the front motor was scraping against some plastic on the inside of the shell. And the fix for that was very easy. I just took a file and filed down that plastic until it was no longer touching the flywheel. That took care of the noise, and ever since then the engine has run perfectly. So that's about it for the AC6000. Now again, I only touched on some of the basic features of this engine. If you want a more in-depth look at this engine, check out that video I did a few weeks ago where I did a full review of the Lionel Santa Fe AC6000. Once again, if you want to watch that, you can get to it by clicking on the link that's popping up on the screen right now. So let's move on from the AC6000 now and take a look at the mechanical refrigeration cars. Okay, so here's a look at one of the mechanical refrigeration cars. There are 3 reefer cars in the set, and while they all look the same on the outside, on the inside they're all quite different from each other. One of them is a sound car, and it has a sound system in it that puts out the sounds of a diesel generator like a real mechanical refrigeration car would have. The next car has a smoke unit inside that generates a ice-cold frost type effect with the smoke. And then the last car, sort of the dummy car of the set, all it has is a load of boxes inside. Now what I'm going to do first is talk about the external features that all 3 of these cars share, and then after that we'll take a look at the unique features of each individual car. On each of these 3 mechanical reefers, you've got die-cast metal sprung trucks and couplers. The trucks have rotating bearing caps on them. On each side of the reefer you've got 3 of these metal stirrups on the underside, and on the sides and ends of the car you've got separately applied ladders. On this end, you've got a metal brake wheel, a metal brake chain, and a little etched metal platform right here. In the middle of each of these cars, on either side, you've got a nicely detailed door, and both of the doors open up like that. Inside, you've got a nice simulated deck. You've got a separately applied metal grab iron right here, and on one side of each of these reefers, you've got a little green light right here, and when there's power on the track, it lights up, which is a nice touch. On the other end of these cars, there's a little door that opens up to reveal a replica of a diesel motor just like you'd find on the real thing. Here's a look at the underside of one of these cars. It's very nicely done. You've got a power pickup roller on each truck, some nice detailing here, and you've even got the diesel fuel tanks just like a real refrigerator car would have. And on the fuel tanks, it even says diesel fuel. The paint job on these cars is great. I couldn't find any problems. You've got this nice icicle theme going on all over the car, and all of the signs and placards on the car are legible. So as nice as these cars look on the outside, I do have 2 issues with the external features of these cars. One is minor and one is a little more serious. The minor problem that I have with these cars involves the doors, and not really the doors themselves. As I said, I think the doors are done very nicely, but rather the way the doors open and close, and I really have 2 issues with the way the doors open and close. The first issue is right here. You see this gap between the door and the wall of the car? Well, that's there because the doors on all of these reefer cars don't close very tightly. And the reason for that is because I think the track system is over-designed. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a copper strip that runs the length of this track. There's another one on the top track. And as far as I can tell, the purpose of those copper strips is to maintain tension on these doors so that they close nice and tight. The problem is that they just don't work very well. They create tension up here in front, so the front is pretty nice, but back here, it's pretty loose. So they actually over-designed it, and by using this copper strip, created a track system that just doesn't work very well and doesn't allow the door to close as effectively as it could. Now, when I first saw these copper strips, I thought that maybe they were electrically powered or something. Maybe they acted as a switch. You know, when you open the door, it would activate the smoke in the smoke car or the sound in the sound car. But that's not the case. These are not electrical in any way. As far as I can tell, they're just there to maintain tension, and they don't do a very good job of it. And so I think Lionel could have actually saved a little money and had a much more simple track mechanism that would allow that door to close much more effectively. The other minor issue I have with these doors is right here. These are door stops. And on the real life cars, what these are for is they stop the sliding door from coming off the track. There's another set right here. But on these Lionel reefers, what happens when you open the door is that the door stops. That's as far as it'll open, and it's about 1 centimeter shy of these door stops. So if they had made these tracks a little longer, it would have allowed the door to hit the stops, and it would have looked a little more realistic. To better illustrate what I'm talking about with these door issues, let me show you a car where the door is done the right way. This is an MTH High Cube boxcar. It's not a reefer car like the Lionel car, but it does have this same plug style door. And as you can see, they did a really good job with it. You don't see any cracks or crevices on the sides of the door. And when the door is closed, it's nice and flush with the body of the car. And on top of that, when you open it up, it slides all the way back and hits those stops like it should. So it looks very realistic and it works very well. And all this is done with a much more simplified track system. There's no piece of copper, there's no spring or anything like that. It's very simple but very effective. Now, as I said, these door issues are minor. They're really not that big of a deal, but I did notice them, and so I wanted to point them out. I wouldn't let this prevent you from buying the set, and it certainly wouldn't prevent me from buying the set over again. I just think that Lionel could have done a little bit better job designing the whole door mechanism, and who knows, maybe in the future they will. Now, the other more serious problem that I have with these refrigeration cars involves the couplers, specifically the uncoupling action of the couplers. I've got one of these cars turned over so that I can show you the nature of this problem. We've got the truck right here, and here's the coupler. And for those of you who are new to this type of thing, let me take a moment and explain how these couplers work. There are two ways that you can throw this coupler. The first way is by hand, and you do it with this little tab right here. You press the tab with your finger, and the coupler opens, just like that. The other way you can throw these couplers is remotely, and you do that with a section of track on your layout that's called a remote uncoupling section. And basically what that section of track has in it is an electromagnet, and when you roll the truck over that electromagnet and activate it, the magnet pulls down this plate right here, which throws the coupler. It should be noted that the hand tab and the drop plate are connected to each other. So if I activate the hand tab, it causes the plate to drop, and if I pull on the plate, it causes the tab to move. So they are connected, so activating one automatically activates the other method as well. Now, this type of uncoupling system has been in use for many, many years. Both Lionel and MTH use this type of system, and it works very well. But for whatever reason, on these particular trucks, on these particular cars, there's a problem. What happens is if you have the car on the track and the track is powered up, if you attempt to throw the coupler by hand, you press the tab in, which causes this plate to drop. That's normal. But what happens is the plate touches the center rail and it creates a short circuit. The short circuit trips the circuit breaker on your transformer, which of course kills the power to your layout. And that's bad. To better illustrate what I'm talking about, I've got the car back on the layout and the track is powered up. Now, very conveniently, as I mentioned earlier, these cars have this little green light here. And so it's very easy to tell if we've got power on the track because the green light is on. So when I throw the coupler in just a minute, you'll be able to tell if there's a short circuit, because if there is, that green light will turn off. So let's go ahead and try it, and I want you to keep an eye on that light. I'm going to throw the coupler now. Let's see what happens. Bam. Short circuit, powers out. And if I want to get it back, I've got to go reset the breaker on the transformer. So as you can see, this is a pretty serious problem, and it likely affects every single Ice Cold Express set out there because it's a design flaw. There's a problem with the trucks that just wasn't detected before the sets left the factory over in China. There is some good news though, and that is that there is a very easy fix for this problem. The key to fixing this problem is to cover this drop plate with some sort of non-conductive material. It could be tape, it could be paint, anything that is non-conductive. This is the sound car I've got up here, and I've done the fix on this truck right here. All I did was I painted the plate with some black acrylic paint, which is non-conductive. Now let's turn the car over, put it on the track, and see what happens. Okay, I've got the car back on the track, and the green light indicates we've got power. So I'm going to go ahead and throw the coupler, and let's see what happens. Ah, much better. Now it's working the way it's supposed to, and there's no short circuit. And the reason it's working is because I painted that drop plate on the truck with some black acrylic paint, which is a non-conductive material. So even though the drop plate is still hitting the center rail, it can't conduct electricity because of the black paint. So a very easy fix. All you need is a paintbrush and some paint. Okay, so let's move on and take a look at the inside of each of these cars, starting with this car, which is the sound car. If you open the doors on the sound car, you don't see much here, but over on this side, on the inside, there's a speaker and a soundboard and then a knob on the bottom to adjust the volume. The operation of the sound car is pretty simple. When the track has power, it begins playing the sounds of a diesel motor that a refrigerator car would have. There is no on-off switch for the sounds. They play whether you want them to or not. So if you don't want to hear the sounds, what you have to do is turn the volume down. And you do that with this volume knob that's on the bottom of the car. When the sound car is in operation, it doesn't play the sounds continuously. It'll generate the sounds for about 30 to 90 seconds, then it'll shut down for a moment or two, and then it'll start back up again. And that's meant to emulate how a real refrigerator car works. So let's go ahead and power it up and have a listen. Okay, we've got power with the light, and we've got sounds. It sounds pretty cool. Now, if you want a little variance in the sound, you can open this door here. That'll change the acoustics a little bit, give you a little bit of a different sound. And then it'll power down in just a second. There it goes. And it'll stay quiet for a moment, and then it'll come back on. And there we go. And like I said, it'll play the sounds for about 30 to 90 seconds, and then it'll shut off again. The actual time that it plays the sounds varies. It's quite random, but that actually makes it more realistic that way. The last thing I want to show you on the sound car is right here. Each one of these 3 cars has a label on it that denotes the type of produce that it's carrying. In this case, the sound car is the strawberry car. Now let's take a look at the lettuce car, which is the car that's carrying the load of lettuce boxes. Here's a look at the lettuce car. You can see the lettuce label right here, and there's really not much to this car. It's probably the most simple of all 3 cars. On the inside, you've got a wall of lettuce boxes here that you can see. There's another wall back here that you can't see right now. And then right here, you've got a load of lettuce boxes, and that load is held down by a magnet, but you can take it out like that. And that's about all there is to this car. However, as simple as the car is, it's still a powered car. It's got pickup rollers on both trucks because you still have the green light right here, which is nice. Finally, we come to the last refrigerator car, which is the blueberry car. And this is the car that has the ice-cold smoke effects. Now, externally, it's identical to the other refrigerator cars, so let's take a look at what's on the inside of this car. Okay, so here's what the inside of the smoke car looks like, and I'm going to put a flashlight up here so you can get a better view of what's going on in here. So what we've got on both sides of the door, we've got a wall of blueberry boxes, and behind this wall, there's a smoke unit. There's an on-off switch for the smoke unit right here, and then over here, we've got a pipe that allows you to fill the smoke unit. And when the smoke unit's activated, it slowly puts out smoke, which fills up the car, which then spills out of the doors, and gives you a nice ice-cold frost effect. Now, when I first got this car, the smoke output was acceptable, but it wasn't putting out a ton of smoke. And one thing that annoyed me was that the fill pipe was very small, and it was embedded into the wall here. And that made it very hard to fill the smoke unit. The pipe was very narrow, and so you never knew if you were getting smoke fluid into the smoke unit. So what I did is I did a little surgery on the smoke unit of this car. I took it apart. On the smoke unit itself, I added some more wadding to it, and I drilled some holes in the smoke unit to get more air into it. Then I replaced the narrow fill pipe with this larger diameter pipe, and I put it in at an angle so that it's easier to get smoke fluid into it. And the results have been pretty good. It puts out much more smoke now, and because of the larger pipe here, some of the smoke even comes up this pipe, which fills up this area faster, which produces more smoke, and that's good. Now, please don't feel like you have to do this modification. When you get this car, it should smoke pretty well on its own. But if you're like me and you like to tinker with things and you like to try to improve the performance of your trains and accessories, then this might be a fun weekend project. The extra wadding for the smoke unit, I bought that online, and then this pipe here is just a piece of aluminum pipe that I bought at a hobby shop. Anyway, let's go ahead and power this car up and see it in action. Okay, I've got the car powered up and the smoke unit is turned on, so let's see what happens. Now, the thing about the smoke unit in this car is that it's not very fast. You have to leave it on for several minutes before you start to see some smoke. So let's see what happens. Okay, so after about 4 or 5 minutes now, we've got some good smoke coming out of the car. And again, remember, it does take a good 4 or 5 minutes for this thing to start putting out a lot of smoke. But now that it is, it looks pretty good. Looks pretty cold in there. Okay, now we come to the last car in this set, which is the Extended Vision Caboose. In my opinion, the Caboose is really the best car in the set, and when I first got the set, I really wasn't expecting much from the Caboose because I'm not normally a big Caboose type of person, but it really won me over because Lionel did such a great job with it. So let's take a closer look. The paint job on this caboose is fantastic. I couldn't find any problems. All of the signs and placards are legible. You've got this cool icicle effect just like on the engine. You've got it up here on the BNSF logo and also on the road number. And if you remember, the engine had a road number of 32 degrees. This one has a road number of 31 degrees. Down here we've got die-cast trucks and couplers, and up top we've got lots of separately applied metal grab irons, ladders, and safety chains. There's a light on the inside of the caboose, and then there's a light right here, and there's one on the other side as well. On both sides of the caboose, you've got a see-through walkway and steps, and the doors open. Up on top, we've got metal walkways and grab irons, and we've also got a smokestack, an antenna, and a roof vent. Now, the smokestack goes down into an operating smoke unit, and when it's on, smoke will come out of the smokestack. But if you would prefer a more scale proportion smokestack, this one's a little oversized, Lionel packages a scale smokestack with the caboose. However, if you switch it out, Lionel recommends that you don't run the smoke unit if you're going to use the scale smokestack. Here's a look at the underside of the caboose. It's very nicely detailed. You've got a power pickup roller on each truck, and right here is an on-off switch for the smoke unit. My favorite part about this caboose is the interior. They did a really good job on the inside of this thing. You've got two crew figures. One's up here in the cupola and one's down in the crew compartment. You've got simulated wood floors, tables, benches, cabinets, lockers, and even a sink. The cupola on this caboose actually detaches so that you can get a better view of the inside. You can't see everything from this angle, but you can see the nicely detailed chairs with the crew member. You can see two of the lockers and the steps going up to the cupola. As nice as this caboose is, I did have one minor problem with it, and that is that it's missing a piece. Up here on the roof, there's a hole, and in that hole there's supposed to be a roof vent, but the roof vent piece was missing when I opened the box. So what I did was I called Lionel customer service and I explained to them that the piece was missing, and the lady was very nice to me, and she said that all I had to do was fax her a receipt for the purchase of the set, and then she would drop that piece in the mail. I've already faxed them the receipt, so hopefully I should have that piece in my hand in the next week or so. Okay, so now I've got the whole set on the track, and it's time to power it up and take it for a spin.
Dispatcher here. Do you copy? Over.
Roger that.
Please start her up and stand by for track orders.
Copy that, dispatcher. We'll get up and running. Out.
Okay, here's the horn. And the bell. And here's a sample of some of the crew talk. This is pretty standard for a legacy diesel.
Dispatcher, waiting on a clear track. Can I roll? Over.
Roger that. Take the green. Over.
Roger that. All clear. Out.
Okay, so now it's time to roll it out. I've got sequence control set up on this thing so it'll play the appropriate sounds when we move the engine. Let's go ahead and do it.
We are underway. Over.
Roger that. Out.
So that about wraps it up for this review. This is a very nice set, but as you've seen, I did have some issues with it. Most of those issues were minor and have been fixed, and now that I've worked out most of the gremlins, this set is performing very nicely, and I'm very happy with it. The price on this set is very nice. It retails for right around $1,000, but I bought this one for about $800, and I've even heard of some people getting it for under $800. And that's a great price when you consider that the AC6000 alone is a $600 engine, so it's a very nice price for a very nice set. Now, if you're looking to purchase this or any other O-Scale stuff, try today's sponsor, which is Legacy Station. You can get to them on the web at www.legacystation.com, or you can give them a call at 770-339-7780. Anyway, that's it for now. I'm Eric Siegel, and I'll see you next time.